this to me is like the really fascinating material.
We don't know what the answer is, but we're looking for patterns.
I think we're looking at kind of a type of cosmic alchemy.
The story slowly grew into business.
But still, a lot of people don't know that this technology actually exists.
The possibilities here are pretty
We
mind-boggling.
can't just believe that it was the work of these lone troubled individuals.
This is Adam.
Hi, Adam.
Hello, and this is Rob, my co-host.
Hi, Dina. How are you?
Producer.
Hi, Rob.
He's the man that makes everything work.
There's a big dog in the picture on your Skype profile.
Yeah, I'm a total dog lover.
Oh, me too.
I've got 3 dogs, and yeah, you like the big ones or the small ones?
Both mine are sort of medium sized, but I like bigger dogs over tiny little dogs.
Yeah, me too.
So, how'd you find out about us? We were actually Facebook friends because I remember hearing you on Darkness Radio way back in the day. I don't remember how long ago this was, but I remember hearing you on it at one point.
I was listening to one of your podcasts. You had a psychic on, and I love the show. She was real interesting. She was going into Aleister Crowley and the history of tarot card reading, and it was a real interesting show. And I thought maybe my book would be a good fit.
Okay, interesting, cool. Well, I'm wondering who that was that we had on.
She was. She said she was a tarot card expert.
Okay.
It was an older episode.
Okay. I wonder if that's my friend Heather. That could have been
That's
her.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, it might have been her. Well, that's cool.
She's real interesting. Yeah, she
that's
did
cool.
like a history of tarot cards.
Okay. Yeah,
And
very
I
cool.
just bought my daughter a deck, so I was looking for some more information about it.
Okay. Well, very cool. Yeah, I'm glad you found us. I think back in the day, I was meaning to get in touch with you, and maybe for some reason I didn't. Slipped my mind or something, possibly. I don't know. But I do remember hearing you on that show quite a few years ago.
I do a lot of radio, so I enjoy it. It's fun.
Okay. Well, excellent. I did get to read some of the book. Very interesting premise. You're a good writer.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It flows very well. How many books have you written so far?
I have 8.
8. Wow. Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For someone that's only written 0, I'm pretty impressed by that. How long do you have for the interview? We usually go, like, our maximum time is usually like an hour and a half, but we don't have to go that long.
That would be fine.
Okay. We'll just see where the conversation takes us. So, it's Dina Rae, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. I just want to make sure to get names pronounced right. All right. Well, we're ready to start if you are.
Great.
All right. I'm going to come on. I'll bring Rob in, and then we'll bring you in. So, all right. We're starting the show on Conspirinormal. Awesome. What's up, Rob?
Was that my cue? Oh, hello, everybody.
That's your cue, man.
Hey, Adam.
Remember, the show's already in progress. That's how it works.
Our friend Therfiel
Yes.
is not here tonight.
Yes.
I just learned how to pronounce his name.
He of the unpronounceable name is not here tonight. He is coming back from California, where he's been visiting secret society tiki lodges.
Nice.
And
promoting his album?
What?
Is he promoting his album?
Yeah, well, he's going to be working on a new Tiki Beats album. So Rob is here. and been exhausted, but working his butt off.
Yeah, but it's a good exhausted.
They call Rob the working man. That's what he is. And we have a guest on the line. This is a lady that I heard on Darkness Radio way back on the day, and I always meant to get in touch with, and then she got in touch with me. And we're going to talk a little bit about some New World Order conspiracies and then whatever other kind of conspiracies that we get to talk about. Everybody welcome Dina Rae to the show. Dina, welcome to Conspirinormal.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Let's get into this because, we were talking, you were talking to me a little bit about the New World Order and possibly, your book Crowns and Cabals. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but let's talk get a little bit of background on you and kind of what started your interest in this whole world of conspiracy theories.
Well, I think I began my road to conspiracy theory back in the 90s when George Bush was president, and we had that Gulf War, and he even used the phrase New World Order in one of his speeches. Mm-hmm. And that kind of, what's that? And then, of course, 7, 8 years later, at this point, I'm a grown woman, and then 9/11 happened. And conspiracy, my husband is a fireman, so he worked a lot of overtime while some of the guys on his shift went to New York to help clean up. And there were a lot of theories, as I'm sure you're well aware of, about New World Order. What did the president know? Could this have been avoided? A lot of people got rich right afterward, and that was it. Then I fell full blown down the rabbit hole. And just to be clear, I don't prefer one side to the other on conspiracy theory. I believe in plenty of left-wing conspiracy theories, and I believe in plenty of right-wing conspiracy theories. So I just want you and your listeners to be clear on that. Okay. This is not a certain lens that I'm looking through. I just look at patterns and draw my own conclusions.
Yeah, because that's the thing right now that's really big, and especially I think since Trump got elected, that people think that the conspiracy theory world is just the world of the right, and there are conspiracy theories on the left as well. It's not right. Just we've explored a little bit of this kind of history about that, like how back in the 60s, the JFK assassination, which really, if you think about it, that's kind of sparks off the whole idea of like the conspiracy theory. That is, that was pretty much like a kind of a really like the left wing that kind of espoused that conspiracy theory back in the day. And now it seems that like people just lumped all conspiracy theory. Well, if you're into conspiracy theories, you're just a right wing wacko, and that's not necessarily so. There are plenty of conspiracies on the left. I can remember hearing stuff about like when Katrina happened, and people talking about how the KKK blew up the levees in New Orleans, and because they wanted to kill all the black people, and you hear about all these kind of conspiracies that, but people don't focus on the left wing part of it, and there are plenty of them.
Well, 9/11, that was all left wing. Mm-hmm. The Fahrenheit 9/11, and then that one famous movie director, was it Michael Moore?
Yeah,
made
Michael
that
Moore.
Movie. So that was a big time period for lefty conspiracy theories, many which I think make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, which ones on the left-hand side make sense to you? We'll just go from there, because I think I've explored a lot of the right wing stuff. Like, what's some of the left wing conspiracy theories that to you kind of make more sense?
Well, again, you brought up the JFK assassination, and then you can't really talk about JFK without adding Lincoln into it 100 years earlier. And both presidents, one was a Republican, one was a Democrat. Both were under the impression that they were the president, and they didn't understand that they were just a puppet for, some people call it the deep state. I don't. I call it the inner circle. So, again, it's not so much a right or a left perspective. It's we've got a problem right now. We've got a whole group of people who are running the world, and we're sitting here, bickering about, reparations and what's a good time to get an abortion and all this stuff, when the real story is is right underneath our noses, and nobody's looking at that. They're looking at the side stuff. And I think that's going to be a huge problem down the road.
Yeah, I tend to bring that up a lot too, about the system of checks and balances that was put in place at the founding of our country, and the imbalance that has slowly kind of taken place over and over, and the power that's kind of been handed over to corporations. And I think that fuels a lot of these issues and a lot of these the conspiracy theories. There's that's kind of this shadowy figure behind a lot of them.
Exactly. Just as I'm sure you're both aware of, we've got speaking of corporations, we've got our big free speech, quote unquote, corporations like Facebook, Twitter, that are banning people left and right who they don't agree with. Don't get me wrong. If somebody's like an ISIS person who wants to recruit people for murder, we'll absolutely ban them. But if somebody has a different political view than the owner of Facebook or the owner of Twitter, that's not right to be banning them. I'm sorry. That's just, we're getting into a censored world, and not so much because of our government, but because of these corporations.
Yeah, that does bother me, because they just came out with, it was this last week. They were talking about how Alex Jones and a few others, and they even banned like Louis Farrakhan, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
that was another one. But this last week they've came out with that now was it Facebook is no longer going to have their sites on Facebook. Was that what it was? I think Twitter was a part of it too.
Yeah, but Twitter's owned by Facebook, or
well, Twitter's its own
Instagram.
thing, I think.
I don't know.
And
Instagram's owned by Facebook.
That's what it was.
Sorry.
Facebook owns Instagram, is that right? Or something?
Yeah, right. But yeah, it's just that kind of thing just makes me real uneasy.
Yeah.
And it's this whole idea that they think that they're going to protect people from something. They're going to protect people from somebody going crazy and killing a whole bunch of people.
This is an area where I'm much more libertarian.
Yes.
I think we have to have some faith that people can filter their own content and make up their own minds. Otherwise, what's the point?
Right.
Yeah, but I've heard arguments from from like the libertarian side that has said, well, they're private companies. They can do what they want.
Which is true.
They are private companies.
I mean, they can. They should be able to do whatever they want, but
they're also gatekeepers.
Yeah.
They're being used though by all of us in some way or another. Even though we're the product and all that, we're using them too. It's become. I've heard people looking for jobs and they have to sign in to a job thing with a Facebook. Or they want to sign into something and they use their Facebook sign in. So it's becoming more and more of a thing. We can't escape it. And I mean, you could live under a rock and not be on any social media, and that, I guess, would be the answer to it. But sooner or later, if you need a job and you need to work, you're going to have to sign up for one of these things. You're kind of forced into it.
Yeah, but you can have an account without being on there and taking everything literally all the time and being completely absorbed by it as well. Which is what's, I think, giving power to these companies.
Well, one thing I really creeped me out on Facebook was I was somewhere with my family and I took a picture and I didn't tag them or anything. I posted the picture on Facebook and it said my name and Dina Rae is with blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Well, I never tagged them. It was through facial recognition.
Yep.
And I thought, well, that's a lot of nerve. So then I had to figure out how to, go through my notifications and turn that off. Well, why do I have to figure out how to turn something off? Shouldn't it be off and it should be on me to turn it on if I want to enable it? There's a lot of people who wouldn't bother. They think, oh, well, that's kind of weird. Oh, well, I don't like that. That's not right to be identifying people on your private face. There's like no privacy anymore.
Yeah, it does, but it makes me uncomfortable too. And also, like, you could be talking about something or you can be in a certain place and all of a sudden you're just going to get all these ads for that certain thing.
Yeah.
That's happened to me several times.
Yes.
On your phone, on your Facebook app. Yeah.
Yeah. My husband and I will be watching a commercial, be like, oh, I really like that new Mercedes they have out. And the next minute, there's a Mercedes thing on your Facebook feed. So you're right. They're not just watching you, they're listening to you. And I have no intention of buying a Mercedes at all, but the comment got an ad in my Facebook account. So I'm not, I guess as a writer, I'm kind of expected to be on Facebook, but I really don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. And what you were saying about how like you can use your Facebook login for now, like so many things to log into a website. Like, for instance, like my podcasting, the hosting site that I use for this podcast, I can either put in my username or password or just go through my Facebook account. And like, it reminds me of like the back in the day with like the Social Security number, how back in the 30s when they started that it was, they said, well, it's never going to be used to ID you. It's not supposed to be for ID.
Yeah.
It's just supposed to be for Social Security Administration. And now your Social Security number, they asked everywhere, literally everywhere, asked for your Social Security number. And I think it's the same. I think that's kind of like what they're trying to integrate Facebook in now, as like that's your footprint, like your digital footprint, and your digital ID is basically Facebook. It's crazy. Yeah.
You're right. And that Social Security number, it's used for everything. It's your number for your health insurance. At least for mine, it's your number to reset your password. It's kind of scary how it's out there in cyberspace. And then sometimes you put it in and the computer knows it, and it just you type in two numbers and then the rest of it pops up. Too much information. Your identity could be so easily taken away. My new thing right now is, I love my mom dearly. If she's listening, I hope she doesn't get mad, but she bought me that Ancestry.com thing for Christmas. And I just, quietly said thank you with no intent of ever using it. And she finally got on me, and I said, Mom, I'm not putting my DNA, I'm not giving my DNA to a corporation. They're going to put it in a database, and who knows, I might be a match for some rich guy who needs a kidney, and who knows? this is getting way too much, way too much. I do not want a corporation to be able to sell off my DNA. It's too much.
Well, do you know the I mean, did you hear about the Golden State Killer? Was it the original Night Stalker? How they caught that guy last year? Yeah. With his brother went on Ancestry.com or 23andMe or what? Yeah, it was either his brother or or like a cousin or something. Yeah. And they found a match of from that DNA from the police database to the database of like whatever. I guess it was 23andMe. One of these companies supposedly that can just that will make this information public. And they caught him that way. Now it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because like it's good that they caught the guy, like he was a complete bastard. They should have caught him, but at the same time, it makes everybody a little uneasy. Like, why is this stuff in a database?
If my cousin's out there killing people, like I wouldn't feel bad if they used my DNA to catch him. Though.
Yeah, but you still have mixed feelings about it, though.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for
sure. Because you can see
the direction.
Yeah, you can see the opportunity for abuse that would engender. Right.
It's like that. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but with Tom Cruise, Minority Report.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They're arresting you for crimes that you're about to commit instead of crimes that you already committed. It's a good sci-fi movie, but that reminds me of where this is all going, and how easy would it be to frame someone?
Right.
It would be a breeze.
Yep. Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the phrase New World Order, what that means to you. What do you see the New World Order as?
Well, I think there's a lot of versions of New World Order. So let me, just be very clear when we're talking about New World Order. A lot of people, believe it or not, excuse me, I got to kick my dogs out real quick.
Yeah, no problem.
Out, get out. Out.
That's what Rob has to do sometimes. Too.
I'm sorry, they opened. They know how to open doors, so they're
smart.
Yeah, they are. But I'm sorry. Anyway, a lot of people seem to think New World Order is like a racist thing. They one of like anti-Semitic, and it's not at all. That's one version of New World Order where you've got some anti-Semites who think that Jewish people want to take over the world, but that's definitely not the New World Order that I believe in. And then there's another kind of New World Order that embraces the idea that aliens are the proverbial man behind the curtain, and our inner circle has made contact with these aliens, and they're running things, trying to set up the world a certain way so they can echo in the rest of their friends who are circling the galaxy and whatnot, and have a utopia place for them to land in. Now, that is, believe it or not, that makes a little bit more sense to me than the other one, but that's still not exactly the New World Order that I believe in. And then, of course, we've got the traditional kind of New World Order where a lot of people seem to think that we've got an inner circle of globalists running the world who want globalization to ensure their own power. And okay, that one makes probably the most sense. But the one that I believe in, because I'm a Christian, is the one where we become a one world government, and that ushers in the Antichrist to rule the world. And then, of course, the Great Tribulation comes, and you probably have heard the prophecy before.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So you definitely have some biblical basis on this.
That is of the New World Order versions. That is the one that I believe in the most. Now, the alien one, I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of it either, with all of the government cover-ups that have been going on. So that one I certainly wouldn't dismiss. But there's definitely more than just a bunch of rich people who want to ensure their power. There's something supernatural, whether it's alien, whether it's God, maybe it's both. I don't know. But they're like Star Wars. There's forces going on that we cannot see.
Okay. What do you think those forces are?
Well, as a Christian, I believe that we've got a lot of demonic forces that are working their way all over the globe. I mean, not to go too far back in time, but maybe 3 years ago, the summer of 2016, there was a huge architectural tunnel built in Switzerland for the longest tunnel for a train to go through. I don't know. I can't remember the name. It starts with the G. Well, anyway, Switzerland and Germany and a couple of the other countries that this tunnel ran through had a celebration before it opened, and they openly had a parade of, I'll be happy to send you the link. They openly had a parade and a show for all the heads of state, including Angela Merkel and the guy before Macron. I can't remember his name, but they had a whole
Sarkozy.
show, and it was all about fallen angels, and Baphomet was in the parade, and there were orgies going on one of the train cars. I mean, this is what the entertainment was. The opening night of the train, this new train tunnel. So it's almost like it's here, like they're celebrating not the train tunnel so much as our one world government is here, and we don't need to be sneaky about it anymore. We can be out in the open because no one's going to stop us. And we're hearing that phrase more and more, New World Order. I think I saw one with Joe Biden saying it a few years back. Joe Biden, who he doesn't strike me as a New World Order guy, but why was he using the phrase? So I'm bringing this up because I truly believe it's not just a novel for me. I truly believe that is where we're headed. And when we are talking about globalization as if it's a good thing, it's a good thing for who? It's a good thing for Facebook. It's a good thing for Twitter. Not a good thing for the little guy. So I don't think people understand. The only ones that it benefits are the CEOs of the corporations, and of course, heads of state who are helping them get to where they want to get to. It does not benefit the little guy at all.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. So you think that there's probably some occult machinations going on behind the scenes, like some really dark occult stuff. Because they're including like Baphomet in there. I do know what you're talking about. That was really strange. That whole little like procession that they did there. I mean that stuff is really weird.
Yeah. And why would that be the entertainment for heads of state? What, to me, it's like they're out of the closet now.
Yeah.
It's time. We can, we can be who we want to be. So here, I just brought the link up, and I'm going to send it to you. Sorry, wait.
Uh,
And I'll send it to you in a minute. But
Yeah.
and that's just one example. We've got so many things going on that just, I don't know. I mean, I when I was in college, I was a Democrat, so I don't want to trash on the Democrats or anything. But what is up with this whole socialist platform? I don't look at what's going on in Venezuela. How could anybody be preaching socialism? The whole entire world is changing right now, and I don't get it. I think I'm nervous. I'm scared for this country. I truly am. Not to get too off the subject, but look at Brexit. When is that ever going to happen? That's what the Brits voted for, and what did they get? They're still in the EU. So we've got a lot of things that we think we're a democracy. We think we're voting for stuff. Nothing seems to be going our way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the socialism stuff. I think that is something that has been tried and has been. I mean, I want people to be treated fairly, but I do feel like there's always an agenda that's behind a lot of this stuff. That
Yeah.
putting the kind of increased government control always kind of makes me a little bit nervous. So how is that going to be implemented? At the same time, it's like us as like normal people, we are kind of stuck in this middle ground, right? So we're kind of stuck between like this kind of ultra capitalist corporate world, and then we're stuck between like the other side that wants our attention, which is kind of like this socialist, we'll take care of everybody kind of camp, and we're just like everybody's just kind of in between that. And those seems to be the two type of management systems that are put on to this when they're probably really almost one and the same. I mean, if you look at China, not to say it too much like Donald Trump, China, but if you look at China, I mean, that really, I think, and Seraphiel, who's not here tonight, he's the other co-host. We've been talking some about this, and China really is the perfect country for them because for, I guess, the New World Order or the Cabal or whatever you want to call them, that's kind of the model because they have this ultra sophisticated, they're implementing all these ultra sophisticated tech stuff like the, where their social media account is going to be like pretty much run their lives. You have this ultra form of capitalism in China where, people literally have to be locked into these factories, and then the government is communist, right? So the government is authoritarian. So it's almost like it's perfect. And it's the perfect model. And I think this is where the world wants to go to, is this kind of like Chinese style technocracy. And that's really where we're heading. And we did a Patreon only episode. We have a Patreon that we do, and we did a Romper Room episode, which is our kind of like news and current events. And Seraphiel and I did on the what's going on with the Uyghurs in Eastern China, or Western China rather, and the Uyghurs are being put into like basically these cities where they're monitored 24/7. They're in this concentration camp area, and they can't go if there's only like one or two mosques because they're Muslims. They can only go to these mosques at a certain time. If they're still monitored all the time, if they say they read the Quran, they get put in these concentration camps. I mean, that is like almost like the perfect system because it's all, it's like that's. It's scary how it's almost like that's a beta testing for other things. It's like that sounds really paranoid, but it really makes you think.
Adam, you're hitting the nail too much on the head right now. Karl Marx, you have to get rid of religion to gain power over the masses. So, yeah, the Muslims are getting it hard. So are the Christians. China is just wiping them out left and right. It's like
and nobody is saying anything about it.
Exactly.
Hardly anyone cares.
Exactly. I watch the news all the time. I've only heard about it on one news channel. I haven't heard of it on CNN. I haven't heard of it on Fox. The only way I even know about it is from OANN, which does like a headline news, not an opinion news, and they do headlines from all over the world. And you're hitting the nail way on the head. And and here we've got seeds of socialism planted in this country. And again, if you want to rule a world, it can't be under a democracy. It will never happen. It can't be under a religious theocracy either, because we're all different. We all practice different things. It's got to be under communism. I mean, you've got it 100% on the mark, and China is the testing ground. And I think the UN is the skeletal government that is going to run the world eventually. We've got 7-8 billion people in the world. They say the most the world can handle and feed is 10 billion people. And the way population is growing, that's about 2050. They believe we'll have 10 billion people. That's the max.
Yeah.
That is the
we were
ultimate
supposed
max.
to have 10 billion by 2010.
In New World Order theory conspiracy, of course, a big part of that is population control. So a lot of poor people think, oh, socialism, yay, my life's going to be so much better. You're going to be the first one they get rid of. If you're unskilled, you don't have any education, you have nothing.
So the next question I was going to ask was, before we were rudely interrupted by the man, is the book. About the book Crowns and Cabals. So what made you want to write this book?
Well, again, it's a futuristic book, not too far in the future, that fictionalizes what the world, specifically the United States, might look like if a New World Order was going to take shape. And my book starts off with a nuclear war. And I believe that that's probably how it really will happen. There'll be a nuclear war. A lot of people will end up dead. And the survivors are going to get scared. And they're going to get desperate. And whoever comes forth in the leadership, I'm going to assume it's going to be through the UN because that is set up so perfect for running the world. They're going to come into play, and they're going to, dole out some new rules for the world, not just the United States, but for the world. And a lot of people might laugh, but the right to bear arms, of course, our Second Amendment is going to have to go. That will not fly under New World Order. We cannot be allowed to arm ourselves, because then how can we be controlled? We can form our own armies and fight back, and et cetera. And we've a few years ago, we had Jade Helm. I'm in Texas. I'm right outside of Dallas. We had Jade Helm, where the Army did a practice run of, going door to door, confiscating weapons and utilizing martial law. So to say that I'm being ridiculous, that's just not true. It's not true at all. And we're always getting, all kinds of, let's get rid of guns all the time. And yeah, our gun laws do need to be revised. We can't be letting crazy people just go out and buy a gun. Like last year in Florida, that one student or former student just legally bought a gun with all those psychiatric problems. And
yeah, I agree.
we can't have that.
Right.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. But on the other side of the coin, we need to respect that amendment, that our forefathers made that amendment because they knew that there might be a takeover. And if we were forced to get rid of our guns, we would be crippled into fighting back.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree with that. I do. I don't know if I think this is a good place to talk about this, because you do talk about in your book about these are about people fighting back in this kind of New World Order scenario. But you know, I feel like kind of when there's this, how to say this, that it's almost like us fighting back against like a really hard government force. Like they have so many weapons that it would just they destroy us in an instant.
I agree.
I think it might be. People have said that to me, but also I'm mixed about it because I think of myself like there's a principle thing to it, though, right? I mean, the ability to the citizenry should be a check on its government.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
absolutely. It's kind of silly, like a bunch of people banding together in a ragtag army could never compete against a government. But, let me remind you that right after the Cold War, we had generals in Russia selling nuclear warheads left and right for $25,000 as low as. So it is possible, not saying it's easy, but it is possible to get your hands on some really good weapons in a time of chaos and in desperation.
I mean, that's a hell of a weapon to be getting your hands a hold of, though.
Yeah, they were selling them for dirt cheap.
Yeah, that was part of the problem. But I mean, so are you saying that like the citizenry should have a nuclear weapon to counter that?
No, but you got to start somewhere. I don't think that we should be able to go out and buy our own nukes. I certainly don't believe that for a moment. But if you were at war, depending on what layman is watching those nukes. I mean, the powers that are controlling everything can't watch everything. They're going to have to depend on people, and that's the weak link in all of this. The people that are supposed to, be in an army, are they going to turn? Are they going to sell off the weapons? I mean, we saw all kinds of stuff with Russia when their communist government fell. So
certainly chaos would be a factor. Yeah,
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
That would have to be almost like a deterrent factor. Like, don't mess with us. We've got a nuke. And that would just basically be like, who would blink first? I mean, that's
sadly, more and more people are more, not people, but more and more governments are getting nukes. And, God forbid, Iran is, if they don't have one already, they're just about there.
Yeah. Yeah. Stuff like that is concerning. I mean, it concerns me that Israel possibly has nukes as well. I mean, that's like your book starts out like that, right? Israel and Iran going to nuclear war. They do have
nukes.
Yeah.
But we gave them. Yeah, they do have nukes. We gave them to them.
Yeah, they say they don't, but.
Well, and then how do you know? We've got so many physicist geniuses running all over the place. Who's to say that they can't get a hold of the raw materials and make their own?
Yeah. But I think what you sent me kind of like a list of questions, and one that I found interesting was, is violence excusable in a dictatorship? if we were to have like a complete snap dictatorship, is it okay for the people to use violent means?
I mean, isn't that a great question?
Yeah.
Because here we've got, Jesus who said, if someone slaps you in the face, we'll turn the other cheek so they could, slap you on the other side of your face. And, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the answer, but if I was under attack, I would defend myself. If I was backed into a corner, I would defend myself. I don't want to end it just laying down and dying. I guess that would be my personal, and I think most people are like that. Mm-hmm. That fight or flight kicks in, and if there's nowhere to fly, then that's just human instinct that you're going to fight.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I agree with that. I think that people would, I mean, we've seen it in history, right? We've seen resistance movements. We've seen those type of things happen. I mean, that's nothing new. It's just where would the violence end, I guess, is my question. But because ultimately, I mean, I consider myself a pacifist, but honestly, I don't know what I would do in that situation.
If someone took away my property, took away my weapons, took away my right to worship whoever I want to worship, when that was all me and my father and my grandfather and my great father, that's all we knew. And then all of a sudden you took that away, I don't think it would work out for the powers that be. I don't think people would be that willing to say, okay, well, if that's the new way we've got to live for peace, then that's no problem for me. I don't think that's how it would work out.
Yeah, I would be very suspicious about something like that, where they would say that, peace needs to reign, and I don't know.
That's the Bible.
I'm pretty,
the same.
But it depends on who's telling me that.
The Antichrist comes in peace, right? Yeah. The Antichrist comes in peace. So whenever you hear that in the name of peace stuff, that you hear, oh, what does that mean?
So going back to the earlier question about Crowns and Cabals, about your book, I mean, you think that eventually that they'll set up some kind of nuclear, like fake nuclear, like limited nuclear war?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's also a good way to do population control. You can get rid of all of the areas that are worthless in terms of natural resources, have extensive poverty with uneducated, unskilled workers. It's like a win-win situation for the inner circle. Yeah. Get rid of what you don't need and then keep what you want. And all in the name of, we can't get along. Yeah. It's a culling.
Yeah.
And
I mean, what you talk about in the book, I mean, that's pretty serious. Now, it doesn't like destroy everything.
No.
But I mean, you definitely the people don't realize the effects of like even a limited nuclear exchange would have. So like if India and Pakistan right now just like shot all their nukes at each other, it would send the global temperature like spiraling down. That's in one area of the world.
Right. Nuclear winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we don't know. We don't really know any of that for sure. Those are all best guesses by really smart people.
Sure.
But again, until it happens, you really can't say. And then they say that that parts of the world would heat up. So which is it? Is it going to be nuclear winter? Is the world going to heat up? Are we not going to be able to see the sun? What would a third of the world blown to smithereens look like? I hope to God we never find out. But I think a lot of people wonder.
So who are the Crowns and Cabals? Who are these people?
Well, I was originally part of the book. I was inspired by the right after 9/11 when we went to the Gulf War, the second Gulf War. And in 2003, the Iraqi museum was left unattended and left open, and a whole bunch of stuff was stolen, including crowns. And that seems to be a big thing, like with ISIS and, of course, with Hitler and a lot of conquerors, of taking other people's history. And, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's because they want to destroy the history so they can create their own and rewrite the past. Maybe that's partially true. But if you read my book, of course, there's more to it. What is so important about these artifacts? Where did they originate? Why do people go to great lengths to preserve them? And that's a theme in the book as well.
So do you think that this is some kind of technology? Because you hear that sometimes, that I've heard that about the museum lootings and such, that there could be some kind of like ancient technology that they're trying to harness or something like that.
Yeah, when you've got certain pieces that are all together, what does that bring back? Who was wearing them at the time? Who was using them at the time? That is definitely a big part, I think, of why so many people loot museums. And we don't even know all of the artifacts that they have. A lot of places won't even photograph the items, or they won't even put them on display. So there's a lot of parts of history that we don't even know.
So would this have something to do maybe with fallen angels?
Yes, absolutely. I think the beginning of the book kind of gives you a clue. It's a Bible verse of when Satan fell, and he was wearing all kinds of jewels.
Okay.
And it does go from there.
Okay. Are you familiar? I mean, are you familiar any with Dr. Michael Heiser's work about Are you familiar with him?
No.
Okay. I just was curious.
No, please tell me.
Well, I mean, he talks about like the what is it that the Deuteronomy 32, where God basically appoints the powers, the principalities, to all the other tribes or groups, but keeps the Jews for himself. That's and so you have these like powers that are over these different areas, like Babylon, Sumeria, Syria, all these different cultures. And it's very similar to what you're describing, like the fallen. They're basically fallen angels. Essentially, is what these creatures are.
The different kingdoms that were set up in response.
Yeah.
I've definitely heard of that. I didn't hear of your doctor though.
Yeah, I would go. We have some interviews with him. I definitely would go. Can suggest going back and looking at that. The role of the United Nations in all this. What is their role? Because we had a guest on a few shows ago that was talking about Agenda 21.
Yeah,
and they were talking about, but he said that was for being used by the aliens to terraform the planet. So,
well, that's a new twist on things. I had never heard of that.
Yeah, but that's one thing I can think of. But like the United Nations, to me, I don't know. It feels like to me they have less power now than they might have had before. Especially now you got guys like Trump and Putin and all these kind of more nationalist leaders. That's kind of how it feels, that they've got less power at this moment.
Well, they have an army. I don't know. That certainly is never talked about on the news. Now, why does a peace, again, we're talking about peace, right? Why does a peaceful organization have an army? That's a little bit odd. They get paid by their country, but they get a bonus from the UN. And if you start digging around about who pays for what, the United States pays for almost half of the UN. And there's like 180, 190 countries. So why are we paying for almost half? Everybody on the General Assembly gets one vote, but then now we jump over to the Security Council. There's only 5 permanent members on that. Of course, the United States is one. Mm-hmm. So that might be why we're paying 50% almost for it. I'm not really sure. And there's a lot of secretive stuff that they do. Some of their duties don't really sound very peaceful. They're ensuring border disputes. That's not me. That's on their own website. That is one of their duties. What does that mean? And if they're ensuring border disputes and we pay almost half, well, why the hell aren't they on the border of Mexico right now? Right? Couldn't we use their hand? We're paying for half of that. See, so there's a lot going on with this UN that quite honestly doesn't add up right. They have all kinds of spin-off organizations like the World Health Organization and the World Hunger Organization, and so already they're planting themselves pretty firm in the ground with all kinds of fingers and all kinds of different pies. And again, the news is not going to tell you any of this, and I don't know why. This is your former guest who was talking about Agenda 21. Mm-hmm. Agenda 21 sets the mark where the UN goes from an organization of countries trying to get along on a global level to an organization of countries that want to increase their power. And everything that comes after Agenda 21, all government policies are made in response to Agenda 21. This is not a law. It's not binding by any means of any stretch of the imagination. It's just an idea. It's an agenda that countries claim to want to follow. Yet here we are creating our policies that are aligned with Agenda 21. Now, Agenda 21 has grown from Agenda 21. It started in 92 in Rio de Janeiro. Again, good old George H. Bush, said the term New World Order again. Mm-hmm. I mean, this guy doesn't stop with that term. And I really think that there's something to all that. And then that was just kind of like the beginning of everything. Then they got a little bit more together in UN Agenda 21 plus 5. And then they did a UN agenda plus 10, and then they did a agenda plus 20, and then they did an agenda 2030. This all stems from UN Agenda 21, and then finally they did a Vision 2050, and all of these things are linked from Agenda 21, and they keep expanding it and expanding it and expanding it. Some of the jargon are sustainable development goals. Now, doesn't that sound like the new Green Deal that the Democrats have been pitching? Well, because it is.
I haven't paid much attention to it, but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, they're not inventing this term. They're using it from Agenda 21. Again, our policy is written in line with Agenda 21 on purpose. Some of the things that bother me the most is eradicating poverty. Well, what does eradicating poverty mean? Well, it means to me, it means socialism. It means the people who are not in the inner circle, who might have a house, who might have somewhat of a retirement plan, won't have that anymore. So that somebody who has nothing could have a little piece of that. And instead of having some rich people, a whole bunch of middle class people, and some poor people, we're going to have almost all poor people. That's what it means to me. And I know America's got a lot of problems. I know we're $22 trillion in debt, but we're sitting pretty right here in this country. I think we all know that. We're even if you're poor, you're sitting pretty in this country. This is a great place to live. What would happen if we eradicated poverty all over the globe? Well, our position of sitting pretty, we wouldn't be sitting so pretty. That's how I think I see it, and a lot of people who are against UN Agenda 21 see it. This eradicating poverty is socialism, and it's controlling the masses. That's a big one. Again, a lot has to do with private property confiscation. Again, is that a good thing? It's not a good thing to me. I have a mortgage, but I own a house. I'd hate to see somebody be able to just take it away because, we're trying to eradicate poverty. Don't really care that you worked your whole life to try to buy a house. That one's a big one, I think, with most people.
When you start getting into those areas, that's where people start to get worried. Let's say, is that going to happen? Are they going to take this stuff away? Is it going to be a more incremental approach? I mean, I'm not.
And religion is a big.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
go ahead, Adam. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, again, religion is also a major problem. It's tolerance. Well, tolerance is turning into a multi-faith religion where we're not having separate faiths. We're starting to try to combine them. At least you see that a little bit with the Roman Catholic Church. They've got all of these national prayer days where they're reading out of the Quran or they're reading out of the Torah, and I think they're claiming that they're trying to be tolerant, but what message is that sending? Like that's part of religion. You have to draw a line in the sand. I'm not saying that you have to be against somebody for another religion. You tolerate them, but you can't be blending them all together. Then that's not a religion.
Right, then it's just a mess. And see, that's similar to the Chinese model too, where they have the kind of the officially approved Christian church and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. I
just want to add
Sure.
real quickly. You know how Notre Dame just burned down, or a big part of it did. Yeah, and they've got all these billionaires that it's really sickening. We're talking about eradicating poverty here, and here's $1 billion here, here's $1 billion there, here's $1 billion there to fix a building. It's kind of sickening to me that they've got $1 billion in their back pocket to fix a roof of an old building, but they don't have $1 billion in their back pocket to help the homeless people in the nearby area. But that's a whole nother show. But all of these billionaires that are donating all this money to repair Notre Dame, none of them are Catholic. None of them are even Christian. So what is their angle? And I was watching one of those Sunday news shows. I can't Meet the Press, one of those. I can't remember the name of it. And one of the hosts made a really great point that he's wondering if all of these non-Catholic, non-Christian billionaires have a condition that they're going to enforce when they rebuild that church. And he's wondering if on those spires that burned down, they're going to not just have a cross, they're going to have the moon, the half moon thing, and they're going to have the Jewish star. Make
it all like an inclusive thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, this is on, regular news. This isn't a conspiracy crackpot internet thing. This is, a Sunday news show, Wall Street Journal. To cite my source, Wall Street Journal on Sunday.
So this isn't coming from InfoWars.
No,
Okay.
no, this is not Alex Jones and the boys. This is Wall Street Journal, which is still respected. I don't think they're being called fake news, but who knows? I don't know. But anyway, that's what they think that this is all about. Let's rebuild the place and incorporate everybody. And we've got in this country, some religions cropping up called interfaithism. I'm originally from Chicago, and I passed one of those churches, and it looked like a mini UN building. It had flags, all kinds of flags from different nations that were planted in a big long pathway to the front door. Very creepy. So again, these are all elements of Agenda 21, which has now turned into Agenda 2030, which has 17 goals, mind you. And then Vision 2050, by the way, was written by corporations. Wasn't even written by diplomats from the UN. It was written by corporations. So this is where we're heading. And some of the Democrats are already talking about ideas straight from the agenda that they want to implement during the election. And, it's scary. It's really scary. I'm not, a big fan of Trump or anything, but he's not quoting goals from the UN for his platform. He's not doing any of that. So
right.
I kind of think, well, maybe he's not in the inner circle. Maybe he is just, a fluke. He's stalling things. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, I don't think he's in that inner circle either. I honestly don't. I don't think he's one of those people. I think Trump was an unforeseen thing. Much like Brexit in a way. I think that there's people that I understand. I'm not a Trump guy, but I understand where people come from and why they voted for him. I think understanding that instead of just saying, "Oh, you're stupid," that does nobody any good. I think understanding it, I didn't vote for either one of them. I voted for the pothead Gary Johnson, but I don't, but I get it. I get the frustration. I get why people did it, and I honestly think that I think the Democrats, like a lot of what you're saying about the socialism thing, like I see it, I get it, but at the same time, I don't think they're very organized in this country yet.
Not yet.
And I think that, we at least going to have another 4 years of Trump. I think it's going to happen in 2020. I think he's going to get reelected. Now, how effective he's going to be on some things, that's a whole other issue. Rob, do you have anything that you want to add? And if Gary Johnson runs again, I'm voting for him. I don't care.
My husband liked him, by the way, but go on. I'm sorry.
No, I've secluded myself from this whole world over the past 2 years because the previous two were just too intense.
Well, the news is so exhausting.
I can't take it. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is exhausting. It's every single day. It's, a million things happen. It's almost like if you miss it for a week, you feel like you're lost.
I mean, that's a good way to look at it. Real quick, the Cabals, are there any group that you see that's out there? I mean, do you believe in like an Illuminati? Do you think is there one group? Are we talking about several different groups competing with each other? That's how I see it, by the way.
I'm 100% with you, and I'd like to add on, and I think we've seen this. Funny, I mean, I did just write this, but we did see quite an accurate snapshot of all these celebrities getting busted for paying $500,000 in addition. Wait, this just shows you the power of these Ivy League schools. That's where I think that they are breeding grounds for these cabals. Like, you know, they're the passage that might get you the ticket to entering a cabal, quite honestly. And we're seeing firsthand how these rich people are so desperate to get their kids into these colleges. I mean, to me, $80,000-$90,000 a year, if that isn't enough to pay for a college, what the heck? But evidently it's not. They'll tack on another $500,000 donation and then go pay the rowing instructor another $500,000 to get their one kid in. I mean, it's insane. Yeah. That's how important entrance is to these, to me, breeding grounds for the cabals. And I think Yale and Harvard probably, they out and out. Yale has that Skull and Bones, which quite a few presidents went to. But I guess University of Southern California is another one. I mean, look at Felicity Hoffman.
Right.
So there's certain schools that are where the in people must go to stay in or get more in. And their parents don't care what the price is. If the kid's too stupid to get into it on their own, that's okay. They'll pay someone to proctor the test so their kid can get in. They'll grease some hands of some coach to get them on some team. All of this just kind of proves what we all suspected all along. And I do think there are cabals, and they start at these Ivy League schools.
Yeah, the deck is definitely stacked.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Well, this has been very enlightening. I've enjoyed the conversation for sure. Dina,
you're a wonderful host, Adam.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. You've been a great guest as well. Where can people find your books, contact you, all that good information?
Well, I'm all over the place, but the easiest place to find my books are, of course, Amazon. Amazon. I have an Amazon author page. All of the books are on Amazon, paperback or ebook, but they are on other sites. They're some are on Walmart, some are at Barnes and Noble. That's more of a scattering, but they're all on Amazon. And my name is Dina, Dina Rae, Rae. You can also I'm at the Frisco Book Fair as a guest this Saturday. I don't know if you have any Texas listeners, but Frisco's a city just north of Dallas, and I'll be there from 1 to 5 at the Frisco Library.
This will actually get posted after that, so.
Oh, okay. Then skip that. And I'm, doing a lot of radio this month and a lot of radio in June. You can always find me on my blog, which is Dina Rae's Right Stuff, DINARAES stuff.blogspot.com. You welcome to follow me. I follow back on Twitter at Halo of the Damned is my handle. Dina Rae Books is my fan page. You're welcome to come. I post everything that I do on that page. I just joined Instagram, and I think it's Dina Rae 2018, and I'm figuring out how that all works. And I'm on Pinterest, Dina Rae Books. I'm very strong social media person. There's actually a singer named Dina Rae, same spelling. She's with Eminem. That's not me. I'm the other Dina Rae, the writer. So
You don't sing with Eminem?
no,
Oh,
but
man, I was hoping that was you.
I've
joking.
actually gotten people like, oh, I loved you on his album, blah, blah, blah. Wrong Dina Rae.
You should have just played it up. You should have just been like, oh, yeah, it was great working with Marshall Mathers. That's Rob's homeboy.
Yeah, 8 miles. Woo!
All right, guy. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Dina. And guys, we're going to close out this section, and we'll be back with Tired Rob on Conspirinormal. If you want your HR team to hire top talent for your company, tell them about ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience, and actively invites them to apply to your company's job posts, so you get qualified candidates fast. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S. This rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal, which helps us a lot. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Conspirinormal. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Hey, man, you're hiring?
Wake up, Rob.
I'm awake, man.
Don't pass out on me yet. So, why are you so tired?
Because I get up at 4:30 in the morning and I do hard physical labor.
4:30 in the morning is too early to wake up for anything.
4:30 in the morning is an oxymoron because 4:30 is not morning. It's the middle of the night.
I mean, if I got to wake up at 8:30, that's early for me. Like, I wake up 9:30 feeling refreshed. If I got to wake up an hour earlier, I'm just like...
I get up at like 5:30 or 6 a lot of the time. That's
right.
So 4:30 is not that much earlier, but it seems like it.
So you're still working on the axe throwing room?
Yes.
Downtown Nashville?
Well, with any big installation, you always got to come back and do little minor tweaks and repairs. And it's such a tight schedule. There was such a rush to get the job done that now... in the off hours, we're going back and refinishing some pieces.
Yeah,
we got to do it before they open. So,
right, and because they've officially opened now.
Oh yeah, they're open for breakfast, lunch, dinner. They got their hotel rooms open. Axe throwing.
Hotel rooms.
Yeah, there's 13 rooms for rent.
Really?
Yep, the 3rd and 4th floors. Right on Broadway.
Yeah, these are one of these like older buildings in downtown Nashville.
I don't know what they cost, but I imagine they are not cheap.
Astronomical. I'm sure they're ridiculous.
Nice little rooms though.
Yeah. It's been crazy here in Nashville because there's always something going on.
Yep.
So we had the NFL draft and what else was going on? Was like a running marathon?
Yeah.
Yeah. And during the NFL draft, like Jimmy Buffett was playing downtown. I mean, just complete madness, bro. I hardly go down there because it's just like, it's virtually inaccessible.
I avoid it unless somebody's paying me good money.
Yeah. Which you've been going back and forth. So, I mean, this is our little showcase city that they like to show off to the rest of the country. Come to Nashville, move here, increase our population.
Keep in mind that
we need some Agenda 21.
It's only 3 blocks of the whole city. There's a lot of other stuff going on here that's very noteworthy and very cool.
Yeah.
You'll just never hear about it, ever.
Right.
It's not a honky tonk.
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff going on always. That's why I like this city.
Right.
Just don't like the traffic and the asshole people that move here.
No, I don't like driving an hour to go the 8 miles to get home from work or whatever it is.
Right. So, any impressions on that interview?
Yeah, it always takes, like, I feel bad because I realize this, that I don't ever talk to the guests like a lot unless it's a subject that I'm really familiar with, which is usually not the case. It takes me a while to kind of resolve my thoughts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I end up saying a lot of things in the outro that I wish I would have like brought up with the guests.
I'm sure that I feel the same way too, but yeah.
But I think it was a really good conversation, and I'm glad she's on. I hope she comes back. For me, whenever things dip into religion, I always have to cringe a little bit, just because from any angle, if you're coming at it from a religious standpoint, there's already sort of an inherent built-in kind of I don't know how to put it. Like
bias.
Yeah, bias, but also like a distrust and there's a lot of little emotions that get tied into religion, and when that gets tied into politics, it immediately just kind of throws everything out of whack. Like, I'm not a big fan of religion. I have nothing against spirituality. I have nothing against
Sure.
a quest for knowledge and for insight and philosophy and all that. But I think that when you get, especially with really big major religions, you get billions of people. I don't know how anybody could feel like they know what's going on. That's my whole thing. Like, I'm agnostic because I have no idea what's going on. And to contemplate people like feeling like they're rock solid and know what's going on is just like completely foreign to me. So if you get a billion people like that together, to me that's terrifying. And it's a very, very powerful force and a very, very powerful, terrifying force.
Right.
And then when you lump that in with the people that are controlling our future and our world, it's just astronomically more terrifying. So I always start, I get real cringy when it turns that direction. Not that she was like really harping on that, but I wish I would have been able to formulate my thoughts to kind of figure out where she's coming from a little bit better.
This, with all due respect to her, I mean, this kind of there are real concerns, like we kind of started talking about in the beginning, where we started talking about some of the things that are going on in the tech industry. Did we kind of like this slippery slope? Are we going down this slippery slope?
I totally agree with.
Are we going into some kind of almost like this, what I termed as Chinese technocracy? Is that something that is going to happen? Now, does that necessarily mean that it's the New World Order, that it's going to lead to the time of the Antichrist? Some people seem to think so. But this is kind of this old idea that is still very much around, of the kind of like this it combines religion and it combines like American kind of patriotism together.
And I think you kind of nailed it on the head right there. That was where I was kind of like, that's such a speculative thing that I totally believe that there's rich Cabalistic entities out there that have vested interests in power, essentially. And I don't think it's a big organized thing. I think it's like, I think you kind of believe the same thing. There's just little pockets of people that have the money and the influence and are using it for whatever they feel like using it for.
Yeah. And nation states are involved too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, look what's going on. Look what's going on with Russia right now. Russia is seeing itself as like, they push this whole narrative of we are against the international order, we are against the global order. They're really pushing that. They really are pushing that narrative. And then just like we are in in it for ourselves. But I think a lot of their stuff is they just want to create some kind of chaos and keep everybody constantly on their toes.
Right.
You know, but so you've got all these different groups and they're all competing with each other.
Another thing I always forget to bring up when there was that 10 billion person population kind of cap that I've heard several times from a lot of people. Nobody wants any kind of population control. Obviously, nobody wants mass genocide, obviously. But if that's true, I've never heard any kind of rational solution to any of these issues. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's out there talking about how, well, maybe we should only have 1 or 2 kids. Maybe we should find other ways to promote that idea. You know, maybe we should, I don't know, come up with some kind of plan other than sit down and hunker and be like, we're going to reach 10 billion people and they're just going to start killing us off.
That's the kind of the problem, is that how do you implement such things without people becoming super paranoid and without them becoming like, okay, now you're telling me what I can or cannot do. People can tend to be, especially in Western society, can tend to be very individualistic. Especially in American society, we can tend to be very individualistic. We value that idea of life, liberty,
we also have TV
and
shows
happiness, which was originally life, liberty, and property.
We also have television shows that celebrate people with 18 children. You know?
Yes, yes. So you would have to do it in a way that's subtle. You can't just come in and just decree that, you know, okay, now, like China has their one child policy. Right. That's implemented by the government.
Right.
That's not going to fly here. So it's
and
people.
I'm not suggesting
anytime
that's the
that
answer.
this stuff,
I'm just wondering if there's what other kind of solutions are out there other than this dark force that's just waiting to kill us all off. Like,
well, and anytime this stuff, let me say this, that anytime that there's this stuff is postulated and put forward, you're always going to have the pushback. That's what it is. It's like none of these organizations can really essentially do what they need to do unless then they get pushback. The thing is that at some point, and I think what somebody like Dina is concerned about is one of these organizations like the UN, in her mind, is going to start coming in and just start taking things and start pushing even further, start trying to push people even further. You know, now as far as like population, I mean, there's a lot of different factors, but like, you know, we talk about this overpopulation, but that's a problem that is in primarily the third world. It's not really here. Like, we joke about people moving to Nashville
right now.
but like, you know, honestly, if it wasn't for Hispanics and for, oddly enough, illegal immigration and the amount of children that those people will have, because either they like large families, they have a very close knit family unit. They're also very staunchly Catholic, which looks down on things like birth control. When you have them. The Hispanics are really the only ones that are keeping us from having negative population growth in this country. Oddly enough, if you took them out of the picture, you would have negative population growth.
We're not suggesting that we take them out of the picture.
Right, exactly.
But
I'm just saying, hypothetically,
right.
that's how it would happen. And negative population growth is a problem in places like Europe. That's why you need to import a workforce, essentially.
That's just growing pains, though. There's got to be some kind of balance that, I mean.
And I made the point, too. I mean, she was saying 20 10 billion by 2050. I mean, that's almost like a slowdown because supposedly in
population-
2010,
Population
I remember
doubled in the past 50 years.
I remember in the 90s they were talking about we were going to have 10 billion by 2010. There's a Bad Religion song called 10 in 2010 that came out in like the mid 90s. So, you know, we're actually down from that. But yeah, population has increased steadily. Like it took till 1835 for there to be 1 billion people. And now we're not even 200 years past that, and it's already 7.5 billion.
Well, it's an exponential growth rate.
Right.
I mean, it's
And there's the UN stuff that came out. Not like I guess it was the UN. Can we really trust them? That came out in not too long ago, talking about how like we're like killing off all these species left and right. And that's going to end up harming us in the long run because we're killing off ecosystems in the biosphere. And you see all that. But even all that global warming stuff, people push back against that because like, well, that's going to threaten me. That's going to be threatening my life as an individual. And it's just like, this is the big thing. I mean, this is really the big debate of the 21st century right now is
Right.
this kind of individualism / nationalism versus globalism. That's what's going on.
right. And yeah, I feel like we're smart enough as a species that we should be able to figure it out without Mother Nature just destroying us all because we can't. Or we refuse to because of individualism. You know, I'm not carried. I'm not concerned too much about preserving my lifestyle as I am about are my grandchildren going to even have a planet to live on, or my great grandchildren going to have, you know, what's their world going to be like?
Sure. There are people that think that way, just as you do. But there are also people that think that they want to preserve their way of life to be able to hand that down to a grandchild so that they don't have anything, so that they don't want them to have nothing. I think that was a double negative. But anyway, you see my point is that I think that, you know, it's always going to be this pushback. The UN stuff I want to kind of address a little bit, and that this is this idea, this whole, and this is all conspiracy stuff, right? This goes back to like the founding of the country, okay? 1776, you've already got guys writing about or 1776 actually, you know, not only does the United States founded, but the Bavarian Illuminati founded, like the real Illuminati, the actual secret society. And slowly, around like the 1780s, 1790s, you get this whole idea of the especially around the time of the French Revolution, when France is really in the reign of terror. You've got guys like Maximilien Robespierre that are stamping out religion, anti-clericalism, left and right, setting up their own, like themselves up as gods or like the goddess of reason and all this weird shit. You know, that they say that this is going to come over here because the agents of the Illuminati, and the Illuminati just kind of like gradually becomes this idea of that they meld it into what later becomes communism, and now the key word is socialism. And then you get to like World War II, post World War II, with like the John Birch Society. This is the kind of stuff that they're espousing around that time, that, you know, communism is just going to take over, that we're going to virtually meld with the Soviet Union. We're going to be the same country and all this kind of stuff. And the Soviet Union falls, and then all of a sudden there's no communism anymore. But now, you know, socialism now is the bad word. And there are definitely things to worry about that kind of push.
There's a lot of positive examples too that don't get talked about very much.
Sure.
European countries. And I don't think I've met a lot of like, you know, diehard like Ayn Rand fans and pure
Yeah.
capitalists that believe that if we were a pure capitalist country, that all of the problems would be solved. I don't think that would work either, though. I think that
Which has never existed.
right. I think you have to have a balance of socialism and capitalism.
This
You
this
know-
is the thing. This is the thing about all this. The Ayn Rand style, Adam Smith, the laissez-faire, pure capitalism has really never existed. And also, communism has never existed. Real communism never existed either.
that's-
They're both ideals, and it just gives people a reason to fight.
Well, there's bits and pieces of it that get blended into everything. I mean, the fire department is essentially a socialist program. Public school systems, public libraries,
Yep.
these are all socialist programs. I don't want to live in a society that doesn't have any of that side to it. I don't want to live in a society that's completely the other direction either. But I mean, there's got to where people. I don't get out of bed without incentive, without someone paying me. Like we got to have that.
When you hear this come out of the right wing now, in this whole conspiracy theory, when they say socialism, what they're really talking about is communism.
Oh, I know. My mother-in-law.
That's what they're really talking about is communism. It's not the socialism equals communism, and socialism and communism come from the same root. However, communism is a much more radical form of socialism.
Yeah, it's a more pure.
Communism is essentially, as it comes down to us, is Marxist-Leninism. It's this really strict, the dictator of the proletariat, these ideas. That's where the state must control everything. We're going to just, give all the wealth away to the peasantry or to the workers, and we're going to manage it, and we're going to make a whole lot of money doing it, and while we do it,
Right, because you got people managing it there and
Right,
it falls
yeah,
apart.
yeah.
On paper, it's great.
yeah. So, this idea of communism, actual communism, though, that was just a goal. They called themselves communists, but it was just a goal. Like the Soviet Union at a certain point, actually even before it became the Soviet Union, they had to actually implement like lesser controls and actually had to re-encourage capitalism to flourish, because what this idea of like war communism had almost destroyed their revolution, right? They had almost ate the communist revolution, almost destroyed it because they were being too strict. Now, through the 20s, the new economic program that flourishes through the 20s, and actually it's almost like what China is now. You had an authoritarian control on top, but you had a basic capitalist system. Well, Stalin comes along and he changes all that. But so, even this whole idea, so going back to what I was saying, socialism is really equals communism. So it's this old idea, because we spent 50, 60 years fearing that, and now that can be used primarily by the right wing when people start talking about socialism, but the thing that worries me about this whole response to Trump, this really radical leftist response to Trump, is that it's even more it's almost even more communist than socialist, because they really want to have a lot of tight controls. And because the corporations have just preyed on people, as people become more and more hopeless, those people are going to come into that socialist camp. And I think that they are going to be much more, this new group is much more radical, like Ocasio-Cortez and all these people. And even like Bernie Sanders, when he's saying stuff like, you can go to college for free and all this kind of stuff. It's It's like, how are we going to implement this stuff, guys? You know, this is,
It's more
it's
than expensive than building a wall across half of our.
yeah. I don't know. I look and see, like, I think like Trump is almost like and the people around him are almost like the last gasp of the right wing in this country. Like they're just holding on to power, kind of like the gerontocracy in the Soviet Union, how they just tried to hold on to power as much as they could. And once Trump is gone, and whether he's elected in 2020 or not, he'll be gone in 2025, despite a lot of people think he's going to declare himself emperor. You're going to have a much more radical socialist, a quasi-communist, it could take over in this country, and it could really swing to the left wing so hard that it'll be unrecognizable. And that is what worries me, is that now we're just like, we have to go from one extreme to the other extreme. You know, that's like all we have. That's our choice. And it isn't. But because we're in this soundbite world, that's the choice that we're given. There's no subtlety anymore. That's why I'm this third party guy. That's why that's why I voted for the pothead.
Me too. Anything that helps break down the system at this point. Like not as an anarchist kind of approach, but just, you know, it's like the whole thing's gotten so out of whack from what like it was meant to be, that if there was a politician that was just out there like, look, all I want to do is bring balance back to the equation, and bring democracy back to the equation, and maybe I'll spend 4 years without a single agenda, just fixing the system, I'd vote for him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think I would too. And that's essentially what I did, voting for somebody like a Ron Paul, or voting for somebody like a Gary Johnson, or somebody like that. But it's like, but now we are in the age of the demagogue, and it didn't start with Trump. It started with Obama. It started with Obama being this great hope that he was going to change everything. Well, all the Republicans and the guys around Trump did was just use that same method, but this time for the right wing. So are we going to keep going? We going to just keep setting up demagogues? I mean, demagoguery is really erosive to democracy.
What does that word mean?
Demagogue is somebody that comes up and says all the right things, everything you want to hear in order to attain power.
Yeah.
Essentially. And they can use brutal methods in their actual government.
And not to bring the subject back up again, but they often use religion as well.
They can. Yep.
Because that's an easy way to get a lot of people that don't want to think about the issues on board a lot of times.
They absolutely can. Yep. All right. So, Rob, if you would be so kind to tell everybody about our Patreon and what they can find there.
Oh, you can find all kinds of cool stuff there. What was that word again? Demagogue?
Demagogue.
I'm going to demagogue the crap out of this.
You're a demagogue of our Patreon.
You're going to find everything you ever dreamed of. All of your hopes will come true if you go to patreon.com/Conspirinormal. I promise you, whatever you want to hear, it's there. We got bonus episodes, lots of extra content. There's various subscription tiers. If you don't want to subscribe, but you want to support the show, you can do a one-time donation through our website. And if you want to help us out, but you don't want to spend money doing it, I totally respect and appreciate that. You can just give us a nice 5-star review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen. And tell your friends.
Absolutely. And to add to that, $1 gets you into Patreon. You can hear all our Patreon episodes, which by the time this is posted, we should have our Patreon episode with Walter Bosley. And before that, we have Romper Room number 6. Like I mentioned before, where Serafiel and I talk about China and the Uyghurs and technocracy. So, all right, I think that's it. We 2 minutes before 9, so Rob can go Betty bye.
Oh God.
And wake up at 4:30 in the morning and do it all over again.
Yeah.
So join us next time, guys. I'm really excited. We're going to have Tim Banal on the program. That's going to be a wild friggin' ride. So we'll see you next time on Conspirinormal. Tired Rob.
Axe throwing.
Yeah. This to me is like the really fascinating material.
We don't know what the answer is, but we're looking for patterns.
I think we're looking at kind of a type of cosmic alchemy.
The story slowly grew into business.
Still, a lot of people don't know that this technology actually exists.
The possibilities here are pretty
We
mind-boggling.
can't just believe that it was the work of these lone troubled individuals.
Like a conspiracy theorist would look at that and say, well, the Illuminati or somebody planned this right
Now, is
away
that
in advance.
or is that by design?
Because there is an ancient site there, or were these ancient sites built on places of power?
We're getting into bizarre areas of relationships that you really have to invest the time to start peeling back the onion.
Do you remember the goat?
I don't remember the goat. No.
No, I think that
these secret societies, because their knowledge they are preserving of us in these
what you had there was the detonation of a 15 megaton cosmic missile. Bring me a cookie.